Thanks everyone for being here, and for I wanted to thank the OR Initiative for this wonderful program that they're setting up. And like we were saying before, it's been a long time coming, and it's just amazing to see it all come together. So I think we're in good company here to talk about adolescence. And normally we would start with really situating this developmental period as a developmentally sensitive period with lots of biological maturation and changes, wonderful cognitive changes and opportunity, but also social changes happening where the push for autonomy is really a signal for additional independence and also identity searching during this period as well. And a lot of these developmental challenges or needs really amplify all the different conversations that we're having right now and an experience that they're going through. And so, as a developmental neuroscientist, what are some of the most interesting findings or important findings that you think are coming up from your research that you'd like to share?
Yeah, thanks, Charissa. I think you're absolutely right. We're really learning a lot of new things, very fundamental things about the ways that kids' developmental changes in thinking and feeling and relating to other people and experiencing self and noticing the things that happen in the world are actually fundamental to the way in which they're growing themselves. They're very actively metabolizing these things and trying to actively build sense out of what they're seeing. So I'll just tell you a little bit about a longitudinal 5-year study that we did at my lab, which is CANDLE, the Center for Affective Neuroscience, Development, Learning, and Education at the University of Southern California, just up the road. We recruited 65 low SES kids from immigrant families from 14 different countries. Their parents were from 14 different countries, to come and sit with us, basically spend a whole day in the lab. They were mainly 14 to 16 years old when we started the experiment, and we just talked to them about the ways that they understood the world, the things that they were seeing, the ways that they saw things in their communities, what they thought could be done about those problems, who they wanted to be in 10 years, just tried to get them to talk to us about their values, their beliefs, their identities. And then we also did a standardized protocol with them where I had put together with my team 40 true, sort of mini documentary stories about kids from around the world who were in all kinds of very complex situations. So, Malala Yousafzai from Pakistan, before she was famous, right? And she's 12 years old and she's talking with her dad about what she sees as the problem in her neighborhood and how she wants to go to school and what it means to her to be able to and what it means for the Taliban to be restricting her because of her sex. Just ask the kid, in a videotaped interview, how does this person's story make you feel? So very ambiguously cognitive and affective, they could say whatever they wanted, and kids got super into this. So I'll just tell you anecdotally, but it's true, out of 65 kids who spent 2 hours sitting with me talking about these 40 stories, not one of them asked to go to the bathroom. Okay? That just tells you something. Kids are passionately interested in true stories about real kids from around the world. There were no actors. Then we moved them into the MRI scanner, and we actually scanned their brains as they watched those stories again. Each one just got a 5-second little clip. This is this girl in this place called Pakistan. She says, "They can't stop me. I'll go to school here, there, or anywhere." And then it just turns off. They get a gray screen for 18 seconds, and they're just asked to think about what the story means to them and to try to just understand that and to tell us in real time how emotionally engaged they are with thinking about it. And then we moved them back out of the scanner and we talked to them. You saw that girl in Pakistan, what were you thinking, right? And so what we did was we analyzed the ways that the kids made meaning in the interview, and we used that to make sense of their brain activity dynamics as they were reacting to the stories in real time and telling us how they felt. And then we followed them 2 years and did the protocol again and did scanning again with them and their brains, and then we followed them all the way into young adulthood, 3 more years. What we found is quite extraordinary, and I think actually speaks volumes to the kinds of claims that have been made this morning about youth's potential to grow themselves. What we found is that the ways kids engaged with those stories, which, by the way, was independent of IQ, independent of socioeconomic status, not related to ethnicity or racial background. Kids asked us questions. Kids tried to learn from those stories. They did this thing that we're calling transcendent thinking, which is, I had to give it a name because all the scientists are telling me I have to give it a name. It's basically thinking beyond the here and now. It's wondering, why did it happen that way? It's querying the institutional arrangements that make things go that way. It's thinking about, what is the personal lesson I could extract from this? It's trying to reconcile that person's values and beliefs and experiences with your own. And what we found is that all kids did this, at least some. Some kids did it a lot more than others, and there was actually like a normal distribution. And guess what? The degree to which kids did that not only predicted in real time how they leveraged brain networks and activated and deactivated them in complex patterns, but the ways in which those complex patterns in turn grew their brains physically over time when they came back 2 years later. So the more of this transcendent thinking they were doing in the interview, the more growth they showed in their brain in every way we could measure it by 2 years later. And I want to be very clear, we're not saying that some kids had brains that grew a lot and some kids that had brains that didn't, or were this kind of brain or that kind of brain. We were comparing kids to their own self. So we're saying, here's Mary Helen at age 15's brain, here's Mary Helen at age 17. How has Mary Helen changed her own brain, controlling for the starting point, right? So Candace is good with the numbers, okay? How have you changed your brain controlling for the starting point? And what we found is that that change, but not the levels of anything, not the kind of brain, but the amount of change in turn predicted identity development at age 19. So the degree to which kids said things like Ericksonian things like, yeah, I really think a lot about the adult I want to become and what I stand for and believe in, and I talk to the people in my lives about that. Or I know I don't just hang with the crowd or follow along with everybody else. I actually try things on my own when I'm interested, those kinds of things. And in turn, identity development predicted how much these young people liked themselves as young adults. Just slide a little slider. How much do you like the person you've become? I don't like myself. I really am proud of who I am. I'm really happy with myself, right? List of relationships. Here are all the relationships you could have in your life: your neighbor, your boss at school, your parent, your own child maybe, your partner, your friends, whatever. For all the people in your life that you have somebody in this role, please rate how satisfied you are with the quality of relationship you have with them. What we found is that those kinds of genuine psychosocial outcomes that kids are expressing themselves were predicted all the way down the chain in a cascade by the brain development that was predicted by thinking in these more complex ways where they were grappling with the meaning of the stories that they were witnessing in the world and trying to make deep sense of them. This is incredibly powerful, and it's going to allow me to kick back to Charissa, because what we're finding is that helping young people learn dispositions for thinking about complex, fraught, emotionally really difficult and contentious issues, and not running away from that and not settling too quickly into a binary stance like we heard before, is actually physically and psychosocially beneficial to them. It is the work of adolescence. So then how do we, in our communities and our families, and then later I'll talk about our schools, actually support those kinds of dispositions of mind? So I just want to be really clear, all of the kids could do it. It's not a can do, it's a do situation, right? Do you do it? If you are in the world and you're faced with something that's fraught, do you take the time dispositionally to try to understand the deeper issues at stake and what they mean for you, your community, for the future? So, what do families and communities do that supports young people in developing these dispositions?
I'm still thinking about everything that you're saying, but that's really wonderful. I'm a cultural developmental scientist, which means that I'm really interested in culture, the role of culture and development within context and different contexts. So I work a lot with immigrant families and religious and ethnic racial minoritized families. And just to talk a little bit about this form of resilience, transcendent thinking, it really reminds me of critical consciousness,
Yes.
this concept
Yes.
of critical consciousness. consciousness, where it's this ability to understand structural factors and the role that it plays, for instance, in racism, rather than attributing the cause of racism to individual people, individual characteristics. And we find that critical consciousness, there's critical reflection, which is this ability, this knowledge, right? And with all of these different capacities, we have to ask the questions of how do we support adolescents in getting to this point. And then the second component of critical consciousness is critical motivation, which also means efficacy. So are you motivated? Do you feel efficacious? Do you feel as if you have the ability to make change? And the last is critical action, which is actually doing something. Are you actually engaging? And social media has been a really important way, especially since COVID, for young people to engage and then engage effectively that we're seeing. And so, when we were trying to understand this and resilience specifically, one of the projects that we were working on, we worked with Asian American families during COVID, and we were tracking their experiences of racism and discrimination and its impact on their identity and mental health. And initially, we were really interested in documenting what was happening. We knew that there were, these social political forces, and we wanted to understand its impact on these children and families. But what we saw quickly was the resilience really coming through. This is not in any way to downplay the negative impact of racism, it's associated with mental health, long-term, it was accumulative. But we saw, and we quickly had to then pivot our work to capture what it was that was happening in these homes, in these families, and seeing how these youth were really leading their parents and their families and their communities in engaging with this problem. A lot of parents were talking about and telling us, so we do mixed methods, so we do interviews, surveys, observations. We need we need the neuroscience piece in that as well. But what we saw was this bidirectionality where parents and adolescents were really going back and forth, where scaffolding each other. In some families, adolescents were leading this conversation. In other families, parents were challenging youth to think, beyond themselves. And we also captured the emotionality and the dynamics of that interaction. And we were seeing transcendent thinking happening in real time, and both, and how when you have relationships that are supportive and warm and that allow you, but also challenge you in a safe space. Yesterday evening, we talked about safe spaces, safe relationships, safe context to have these conversations. And sometimes social media, as what Aura is doing, can provide that space, that safe space to allow youth, if they're not able to do this at home, to engage in these kinds of conversations and experiences. We also work a lot with minoritized youth who have different identities. So we've been talking about identity here as if it's one construct, but we know, youth these days and have always had multiple identities, and something that we're really interested in is how they balance and negotiate and how these different identities intersect with each other in ways that are really complex. And what can families do, what can schools and communities do to really support young people in having these kinds of positive experiences. And so I want to turn it back to you and talk about the role of schools and teachers and peers.
Yeah. So before we take questions, I'll tell about one more study, which is available that we're in the content, we're right in the middle of doing, but we have preprints up, which are they're just getting peer reviewed, where we actually went around inner city LA public junior and senior high schools, and we asked principals, who are your superstar teachers? Who are your rock stars? Who do you think the teachers that are really doing a great job? Whatever that meant to them, right? can you introduce us? And so 40 amazing educators from across the city working in underprivileged, high immigrant neighborhoods basically agreed to be in our study. And we had a team of people that actually did all kinds of interviews and observations of them in their classrooms. We collected information from the kids about the ways that they feel in that teacher's class and learn in that teacher's class and the relationships they have. And then we also did all kinds of psychophysiology and things in the class. And then we brought the teachers to the lab, and these amazing people talked to us about how they understand their work, how they understand youth development, how they understand and make decisions in their practice. And then they also did their work from our MRI scanner. So we did crazy things like collected assignments. We worked with each teacher to make an assignment for their class, and these teachers were across all subject areas, including extracurricular subject classes. And we asked them to make a very open-ended assignment. Like this week, we've been talking about, or we've been learning about, the Pythagorean theorem, the rules of badminton, the causes of the Civil War, whatever it is, okay? Why is this important? What's interesting? What are the big ideas? Like a very open-ended assignment that you could do equivalently in any subject area. And then the kids, amazing people that they are, did the assignments and gave it to us straight on Qualtrics, and their teacher never saw it until they got in the MRI scanner, and we gave them their students' work. And we said, okay, here's Mary Helen's paper, grade this. Right? Here's Carissa's paper, grade this, okay? And we're scanning their brain. And then, okay, here are papers from kids you don't know. We got these papers off the internet. These are kids just talking about these same issues on the internet. Grade them. And actually, don't tell our participants what we told them at the end. We wrote those to match the quality of their actual students. But they're not your real students. So what happens? These teachers graded the two assignments the same. So if they gave Mary Helen a B over here, they gave, fake Mary Helen a B over here. But the brain activity they showed to their real students was massively more. All over social, cognitive, affective, attention-related, autobiographical regions. You show that work to educators like you, and everybody in the room goes, well, duh. Right? That's what teachers who know what they're doing are doing. It's not just about this, and it's not that it's not objective, because they gave the same B, but what they bring to it. So then, one more piece of this little study, we asked the teachers to give open-ended feedback to a random selection of kids from their class, from high, middle, and low, girls and boys, okay? Performing on their class roster. And we said, okay, here's your student, Charissa. What would you say to Charissa if you had a conference with her talking about how she's doing? And here's your student, Mary Helen, right? And here I'm almost quoting these teachers, but not exactly, because the slides aren't in front of me with their quotes. But we had a large range of the kinds of things teachers said. So some teachers said things like, well, Mary Helen, you're just a model student. You always do your work, and you're on time, and you advocate for yourself, and I would just say keep doing what you're doing. I mean, I do think you could push yourself a little more, because I think you're capable, but you're just doing great, okay? Or Mary Helen, like, I beg, I plead, but if you don't do your homework, if you don't do the work, I can't help you. It's just building up that diligence. You need to do it, or I can't, right? Compare those kinds of answers with other teachers who said things like, well, Charissa, you've got amazing ideas, but I want to see you develop your intellectual courage in expressing them and then listening to other people. Now, how do you begin to do that, Charissa? Well, here's what you do. You're going to explain yourself, and then you're going to stop, and you're going to count to 5, and you're going to listen to what other people think about your ideas. And then you're going to see, what do I value, and what do they value? How do those go together? And then you're going to answer. And then, now you're thinking, now you're talking, Charissa, so I want you to go try that. And what we found is that developmental, systematicity of a sort of developmental orientation, where you're taking a kid and thinking not just, what do you do, but how do you think, who are you in this space? Those teachers, the degree to which teachers talked like that to their kids was explaining statistically the difference in the neural activity between grading their own students and kids they don't know. In other words, the effect in the brain that said teachers grading their own students have much more activity in all these social cognitive reasons was sort of statistically related to the degree to which they're thinking about their students as developmental agents who are self-actualizing in the space of their class. So your roles in young people's dispositional development to think in these ways that we're hearing from all these experts today are beneficial not just for kids but for society is actually pivotal. And with that, do you have anything else to add? I'm going to open to questions. Okay, questions. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, first start out with I have an experimental question for you on the first study.
Oh, okay.
Is it, from what I understood from the study, it was that the students who are more likely to engage in this transcendent thinking or
Or
correlated.
who did more of it across the 2 hours.
Oh, sorry, who did more of it, sorry. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a study on like an intervention to see if you
No, it was not an intervention.
That was just my question.
Yes,
Right.
we've done intervention studies, and yes, you can change kids' dispositions, right? Yes, but that was not an intervention. Exactly. Yes.
Hi, I'm Natalia Petrozella. I'm from the New School in New York City. This is so interesting. I'm very much...
We're working with teachers from your school. Anyway.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
Oh, we'll talk about that
Yes,
after.
we'll talk later.
I should know about that. I'm so taken with this kind of very specific how you think and this kind of transcendental thinking, and also the way it can be applied, as you say, across disciplines, from like how do you play ping pong to solve a math problem. And I'm curious if you look at it this way, or if you even have a sense, like, were there certain subject areas where this is already happening better, or where, or more, I won't say better, but or that lend themselves more to doing this kind of work, giving this kind of feedback. So yeah,
that's
thank
a
you.
really great question. We're about to study in our next study how these kinds of dispositions may transfer across kids' academic subjects. Okay. So, and passion projects. We're gonna have all kinds of things in there and see, like, how does it transfer? Do kids show up in this way across different spheres of their life? But I really think, and we have awesome teachers, probably you know some, right, who can exemplify this kind of thinking and teaching across all disciplinary areas. And so, you can do it in math class, right, where it's about big ideas like infinity, and, like some kid is explaining, and then, like, I had to learn fractions in order to understand infinity because I was fascinated by this notion of asymptotes and how you never get there, but you get closer and closer, right? So you can, but you need to really understand the subject matter and the kids in order to hook them in with these big idea spaces. So one way to think about this is classrooms that are, you ask yourself as a teacher, right? We always think about emotion as being really connected to learning. But I think we don't think about this quite right in education. We think about what emotions are being had here, right? Are they frustrated? Are they excited? Are they happy? Got it. But what if we were to instead, or also think about, what are the emotions about here? Are they about outcomes, results, things that are going to happen? Or are they about ideas and the power of understanding things differently? And when at least some of the emotions that are driving students, and I should have said before, the whole effect of the development of the brain was moderated by how emotional they said they were about the stories. When kids were super emotional, like we hate that in our teenagers, we think that's scary, that was driving the thinking, actually statistically, right? Driving the brain activity too. So the idea here is that when kids are thinking about and emoting about and getting connected to the ideas behind something, then negative emotions can be incredibly powerful. I'm angry about lead in the water in Flint, Michigan. I want to understand chemistry now, right? Like, and it's not just about positivity and happiness and having fun. It becomes about big, deep issues, and that is so fundamentally motivating to kids. Yeah, you're welcome.
I love the focus on dispositional thinking, because that goes to what Aura is doing, which is not teaching them what to think, but teaching them how to think. And emotions in children and adolescents and in adults as well engages us. And so it's a really key combination to be able to help them, regulate and manage appropriately.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In our study of the teenagers, what we found is that emotions about what I'm calling concrete or context-dependent responses, which are completely appropriate. Like, oh, that poor girl in Packy, what did you say? Oh, poor her, it's gonna be really hard. I wish I could help her, I feel bad for her. That's fine, that's great. Yeah. Kids who said that more had reported better relationships with their peers on a day-to-day life. They had more diversity of peers in their friends groups, things like that. But that didn't grow their brains over time in our study. What grew their brain is like, wait a minute, you're telling me not everybody in the world gets to go to school just because somebody else decided they couldn't? Because they don't think they should? Well, that's not right, right? And when your emotion is about that, that's what was growing brains. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hi, good morning. Oh, over here.
Yes.
My name is Cindy Mata. I'm the director of the UCI History Project, and I work with history and ethnic studies teachers to develop curriculum. And so, Dr. Immordino-Yang, when you were talking, my synapses were just going because, like, critical consciousness, critical reflection, embodiment, which is what you all were talking about right now, intersectionality, like those are all the foundations that we use when we develop ethnic studies courses with teachers. And so I know your work was with parents and students, but I'm curious, have you seen the connection? I know for us, we use schooling for critical consciousness to ground our ethnic studies work, but I'm wondering if you all have any other connections between y'all's work and the work of ethnic studies and the goals of ethnic studies.
So you probably have more to say about work with ethnic studies, but I'll say very quickly and then pass it to you. We are actively working with teachers across academic subject areas to try to think about, and in ethnic studies, it's kind of obvious that that's what the whole purpose is, right? But it's not so obvious in math class, but it should be, right? It should be. You're building mathematicians. You're building people who can feel excited about the power of understanding things quantitatively, right? We are working intensively with teachers from across the nation right now. We have a project called Collabs, which you can look up and learn more about, but we're just ramping it. It's only been going for a year, but we've had some 60 teachers work intensively with us about trying to build their curricula and their style and disposition of management of their classroom in such a way that it's encouraging of these dispositions of mind. And then I'm sure in community contexts.
Yeah, in community context also, this is why we're advocating very strongly for ethnic studies, because it's really beneficial for all children. You know, it's been viewed as only beneficial for minoritized children and minoritized youth, but in connection with the understanding of broader structures and critical consciousness, and also, you know, transcendent thinking, the way to talk about it is how it, you know, benefits all children, and I think that it's a really important message.
Yeah.